Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds, attempting to defend his boss and the chairman of the FCC with a new fairy tale even a 5-year-old wouldn't believe.
Celebrities are rallying to his cause, saying this is a First Amendment assault being carried out by the FCC, Brendan Carr, and by the President of the United States himself. And to that, you say?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I'd like them to tell me exactly what Brendan Carr did to have Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air, because number one, he is currently on the air, and to the extent that he isn't in certain stations, it's because he's not funny and because his ratings aren't very good.
I have some good news for you, J-Dog. We're back on all the stations.
Vance spent several days visibly irritated after Jimmy Kimmel lit him up again during a live monologue, and honestly, it is not hard to understand why. Few things frustrate a politician more than a joke that lands because it carries a trace of truth. Kimmel did not settle for harmless teasing about Vance's haircut or throwaway punchlines. Instead, he walked the audience through Vance's actual public record, step by step, highlighting the rumors he amplified, the dramatic performances he often delivers in interviews, and the dizzying political shift that turned him from a loud skeptic of Donald Trump into one of Trump's most enthusiastic defenders. Anyone who has followed the story over time understands why Vance appeared furious afterward, because the contrast is impossible to miss. And if you are only catching up now, trust me, this story becomes interesting very quickly. So
a lot of pressure on J.D. Vance tonight. J.D. Vance hasn't been under a microscope like this since his wife asked him why the couch was so sticky. But Trump had good advice. He told him, just have fun, and you know what? It seems like he did.
I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are.
That's how you get the single cat ladies back on your side. You know,
the story really begins to take shape in Springfield, Ohio, where J.D. Vance amplified one of the most reckless and thoroughly debunked rumors circulating during the political cycle. The claims suggested that Haitian migrants were killing and eating people's pets, something that sounded less like a serious allegation and more like a bizarre internet chain message. This was not a case of someone overhearing a strange story from a neighbor or a rumor whispered behind a backyard fence. It was the kind of chaotic misinformation that spreads across social media, like a broken game of telephone. Local authorities, reporters who were actually present in the community, and residents of Springfield themselves quickly shut the claim down, making it clear the story had no basis in reality. Yet Vance continued pushing the narrative to a massive audience. In today's attention-driven media environment, dramatic, fear-based stories...
Vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance is now pushing a bizarre conspiracy theory that is taking the right by storm. Tonight, CNN's Tom Foreman has fact-checked this claim about Haitian immigrants abducting and eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. Tom?
Trump's own running mate, J.D. Vance, is the main source of this nonsense. He's been talking about this in speeches. He's been posting about this as much as he can. The city of Springfield, in his state, Ohio, says there have been no credible reports of Haitians eating pets. But J.D. Vance, who wants to be vice president of the United States, keeps bringing it up.
When CNN asked Vance's office why he is pushing such a blatant lie, they said, Senator Vance has received a high volume of calls and emails over the past several weeks from concerned citizens in Springfield. His tweet is based on what he is hearing from them.
Oh, he's getting calls. I didn't know he was getting calls. Now it makes sense. I guess all you have to do to get J.D. Vance to start spreading crazy things around is make calls.
During his monologue, Jimmy Kimmel methodically dismantled that rumor in the way sharp political satire often works. He presented the receipts and walked viewers through the timeline, showing how the false claim moved across social media before turning the spotlight on the person who kept repeating it as though he had uncovered a historic mystery like the Lindbergh kidnapping. Kimmel's point, delivered in his familiar sarcastic style, was essentially this: you cannot light a fire in your own backyard and then run around shouting about how hot everything feels. The joke landed because the logic was so obvious. And if you watch that segment when it aired, it raises an interesting question. Do you believe Vance simply got caught up in bad information and handled it carelessly? Or do you think he knowingly pushed the rumor because outrage and attention have become powerful?
First of all, Kimmel was taken off the air because he had low ratings, because the late-night talk show host model was not doing particularly well, and let's be honest, because he had become so politically unhinged that I think he wasn't particularly funny. Now, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, put out a couple of tweets, but the government took no action. We did literally nothing to try to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air. We believe in free speech. We also believe in the right of a television station or a network to cancel somebody because of low ratings. And I think it's a little bit rich. The second point I make, Rashad, is it's a little bit rich for people to say that somehow we're engaged in censorship when literally every day, including yesterday, we found out that Google and YouTube were censoring information at the height of COVID at the direction of the Biden administration. So if we're looking for real sources of the government driving censorship, we should be looking at the policies of the Biden administration. We absolutely reject censorship in the Trump administration. We don't want to prevent anybody from speaking their mind, but if a TV station wants to cancel a guy because he's not funny, that's their business.
I find the answer fascinating because the situation fits into a much larger pattern that stretches back several years. Think back to the earlier phase of J.D. Vance's career when he built his reputation explaining what he believed was wrong with Trump-style politics. During that period, he openly criticized Donald Trump and even described a movement surrounding him as something similar to cultural heroin, an influence that can feel exciting at first, but slowly damages the people consuming it. That was the moment when Vance was known primarily for his best-selling writing, for serious conversations during book tours, and for presenting himself as a thoughtful conservative voice analyzing the country's political direction. It was a very different...
And so one of the takeaways is not just that the Republican Party base is somehow fundamentally flawed in a way that's unique in American political history. It's that Trump is a really bad candidate and, frankly, I think a really bad person.
Said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him. Terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
I didn't know you meant that, Donald Trump.
Then, almost overnight, the tone shifted dramatically. The harsh criticism disappeared, the red campaign cap appeared, and suddenly J.D. Vance was appearing on television defending the very political figure he once attacked, describing Donald Trump as essential to the country's future. For Jimmy Kimmel, that reversal has become comedic gold. He returns to it again and again like someone happily working through leftovers from a holiday feast. The reason it works so well is simple. Kimmel does not need complicated punchlines to highlight the contradiction. He simply plays old clips of Vance criticizing Trump and then immediately follows them with newer clips where Vance praises him enthusiastically, allowing the audience to connect the dots themselves. There's a basic rule of comedy at play here. When your past statements dismantle your present talking points, the issue is not messaging strategy. The issue is credibility.
I mean to interrupt your bull. Go on.
There's something else that's important here, Laura, which is that these broadcast companies, ABC, NBC, CBS, they enjoy the public airwaves because they serve the public interest. So I actually think that we should be having a conversation about whether these companies are serving the public interest. That's actually totally separate from the Jimmy Kimmel issue because nothing happened to him. He's currently on the air, and to the extent that he's not, it's because advertisers don't like him because his ratings aren't very good.
My ratings aren't very good. Last time I checked, your ratings were somewhere between a hair in your salad and chlamydia. In 3.5 years, I'm not the one who's going to be doing mascara tutorials on YouTube. How did we wind up with a president and a vice president who wear more makeup than Kylie Jenner and Lady Gaga combined?
That credibility challenge appears in other parts of Vance's political messaging as well, especially in the culture war lines he frequently repeats. One of the most talked about examples was his comment about so-called childless cat ladies supposedly running America, suggesting that people without children have less investment in the country's long-term future. The idea might sound provocative in a political speech, but it collapses quickly under basic scrutiny. policies involving health care, child tax credits, education, and paid family leave affect children and families regardless of who happens to be writing the legislation. Kimmel responded by pointing out something simple but powerful. The United States is not a parenting blog where civic value is measured by the number of kids someone has. It is a constitutional democracy where responsibility comes from citizenship, not from a family photo album.
Tylenol. It's been overwhelming. I've heard from a lot of people over the last 6 days. I've heard from all the people in the world over the last 6 days. Everyone I have ever met has reached out 10 or 11 times. Weird characters from my past are the guy who fired me from my first radio job in Seattle, where we are not airing tonight, by the way. Sorry, Seattle. His name is Larry. In 1989, Larry tried to force me to do a bit called Jokes for Donuts, where people would call in with a joke and I would give them donuts. I refused to do it, and then I made a lot of fun of Larry for suggesting it, and eventually Larry fired me, and I had to move back in with my parents. But even he wrote in to cheer me up. Thank you, Larry, and I want to thank everyone who checked.
Kimmel delivered that point with the quick, sharp humor that late-night television thrives on. Beneath the joke, however, was a value many conservatives once emphasized strongly: personal responsibility. If a policy argument cannot stand on its own merits, shifting the conversation towards someone's personal life or family status does not strengthen the argument. It simply avoids the real discussion. Then there is the constant praise directed toward Donald Trump. Kimmel has turned that pattern into one of his favorite recurring bits because the contradictions practically write themselves. One memorable moment came during Trump's endorsement when he accidentally referred to his new political ally as J.D. Mandel, mixing up the name of the man.
There is some silver lining to the shutdown. According to their official website, during the shutdown, our friends at the FCC will cease their response to consumer complaint and inquiry phone lines, which I'm not a lawyer, but I think means we can now say whatever we want on TV.
How long you worked here?
A year.
Okay. Donut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which donut, though?
Whatever makes sense. No pickles. Hold the pickles.
Oh, well, no, I can get that for you.
For most people, being publicly misidentified by the political leader they admire might trigger a moment of embarrassment or at least reflection. For J.D. Vance, it somehow turned into another opportunity to demonstrate loyalty. Kimmel pointed out the humor in that moment by asking a question that instantly drew laughter from the audience. Who gives up their dignity for a public shout-out and still celebrates, even when the shout-out never actually happens? From that point forward, the pattern continued. Each time Trump stumbled into another controversy, whether it involved confusing teleprompter moments, conspiracy claims, or angry attacks against corporations, Vance often rushed in to defend him. For late-night writers, the routine almost became a fill-in-the-blanks comedy exercise. Insert the latest controversy, add the familiar defense, and
all week to list all of them, but some that I do especially want to mention are my fellow late-night talk show hosts, my friend Stephen Colbert, who found himself in this predicament, my friends Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Conan O'Brien, James Corden, Arsenio, Kathy, Wanda, Chelsea, even Jay reached out. Sometimes I wonder in what world is the Vice President of the United States calling into a giant-toothed podcast host to badmouth me and the people who watch this show.
There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say the president can't exercise the powers of the presidency.
The tradition of meddling where they shouldn't under many administrations, but it wasn't always like this. There was an FCC commissioner back in 2022 who worked under Joe Biden who was spot on. He wrote, President Biden is right. Political satire is one of the oldest and most important forms of free speech. It challenges those in power while using humor to draw more people into the discussion. That's why people in influential positions have always targeted it for censorship. You know who wrote that? FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr. Our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Steven off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous.
They call me creepy, cringy, awkward, that I give people something called the ick. They want you to think that I can't order a simple donut.
Was appointed chairman of the FCC by this former crusader for free speech.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple. Just like dominoes, one by one, they'll go down.
That was also in 2022. And I wonder, how did that guy turn into this guy?
Who would you like to see replace Kimmel on late night?
A lot of people, anybody could replace him. The guy had no talent. Kimmel look, he was fired, he had no talent. It's a whack job, but he had no talent. And more importantly than talent, he had no, because a lot of people have no talent.